Shakespeare's play The Winter's Tale analyzed through ideas proposed by author Shelley Taylor in her book The Tending Instinct. I will be analyzing Acts 1, Scene 2, and Acts 2, Scene 1 of the versions The Winter's Tale, released in 2018, produced by the New Swan Shakespeare Festival, and also the version The Winter's Tale, released in 1999, directed by Greg Doran. In Scene A, we see King Leontes' feelings of Hermione cheating on him arise. He discusses these feelings with Camillo and orders him to poison Polixenes. At first, Camillo does not agree to, but eventually he backs down from his king and agrees to poison Polixenes. Leontes' objective in Scene A is trying to convince Camillo to see that his wife is cheating on him.
Say my wife's a hobby horse! Say it and justify it!
I would not be a stand.
Leontes' obstacle is that Camillo will not believe him. Camillo attempts to convince his king that he has misread the situation.
Say it be, 'tis true!
No, no, my lord!
It is, you lie! You lie, I say thou liest, Camillo, and I hate thee! Were my wife's liver infected as her life, she would not live the rutting of one glass!
Who does infect her?
Why, he that wears her like a...
Blocking used by Leontes is when he is aggressively pacing the stage while having his conversation with Camillo. He continues to walk back and forth from Camillo and then away from him in frustration.
They're with me already! Whispering, rounding, Cecilia's, and so forth! How came it, Camillo, that he did...
One psychophysical action that Leontes does to show his frustration is while he's talking to Camillo, he thrusts his arms in the air and he uses his hands to further exaggerate his emotion of discontent.
Nearest things to my heart, as well my chamber counsels. But we have been deceived in thy integrity, deceived in that which seems so.
It forbid, my lord.
To bite upon it, thou art not honest. Or if thou inclinest that way, thou art a coward.
Another psychophysical action Leontes uses is altering his facial expressions to match his feelings. His facial expressions are distressed the entire scene to match his frustration.
Night, is this nothing? Why, then the world and all that's in it is nothing. The coloring sky is nothing. Bohemia nothing. My wife is nothing.
Another psychophysical action Leontes does is he touches his head and mouth out of distress and frustration.
As deep as that though true.
Is whispering nothing. Is leaning cheek to cheek. Is meeting noses.
After some time of trying to convince Camillo, Leontes lowers his tone and explains to him that he would not be this prominent about an issue if he did not believe it to be true. At this, Camillo agrees to his king's wishes and says that he will kill Polixenes for him.
This is all. Do it. Thou hast the one half of my heart. Do it not. Thou splitst thine own.
I'll do it, my lord.
I will seem friendly, as thou hast advised me.
Shelley Taylor states in her book The Tending Instinct how on occasions when men must defend their position, they call upon their allies to defend themselves. We see this when King Leontes felt threatened by Polixenes of taking his wife from him. He called upon his ally, Camillo, to take care of Polixenes for him. On page 244 of The Tending Instinct, Taylor describes Rob Slowtoe's elephant study. Slowtoe and his colleagues found that when elephants are confronted with a larger, higher-ranking male, the younger males back off. That is both physically and mentally. We are given a prime example of this phenomenon when servant Camillo backs down from trying to convince his king that he is wrong. Even though Camillo may not truly believe his king's accusations, he still agrees to go through with the plan to kill Polixenes. Moving on to Scene B of the 2018 version of The Winter's Tale. In this scene, Leontes rudely interrupts his wife and son while sharing a story. Leontes confronts his wife Hermione and accuses her of adultery. He announces that he desires his wife be sent to prison. The scene ends with Hermione removing herself and listening to her husband's ill-judged wish of her being put in prison. Leonte's objective in Scene B is to expose Hermione of her so-called love affair with Polixenes that Leontes sees in his eyes. He wants his lords to imprison her.
It's my saying, however you lean to the nay word.
You, my lords, look on her. Mark her well.
Leontes has the obstacle of Hermione when she tries to defend herself. She attempts to convince her husband that he is thinking irrationally.
Made thee swell thus!
But I'd say he had not.
Blocking displayed by Leontes in Scene B is he frantically and aggressively moves across the stage throughout the whole scene. We also see in this next clip how Leontes doesn't return Hermione's comforting gestures of touching and hugging.
Me throughly than to say you did mistake.
No. If I mistake in those foundations which I build upon, the center is not big enough to bear a schoolboy's top. Away with her!
The first example of psychophysical actions done by Leontes is when Leontes points harshly at his wife when he is accusing her.
With, for 'tis Polixenes hath...
A second psychophysical action performed by Leontes is he licks his lips and breathes heavily. He also shakes his head furiously. These all do a great job at expressing how angry he is towards the whole situation.
Who has most cause to grieve it should be. She's an adulteress!
The outcome of Scene B is Hermione gives up in defending herself. She walks herself to prison and refuses to argue with her husband, the king, anymore.
Adieu, my lord. I never wished to see you sorry. Now I trust I shall. Amelia, come, you have leave.
Go!
In Chapter 2 of Shelley Taylor's book, The Tending Instinct, Taylor states on page 41, "From our research with humans, we knew that women turn to the social group in times of stress." She explains throughout her book that women tend to take a more social stance in times of stress and look to a friend. We see Hermione do this after she is wrongfully accused by her husband. At the end of Scene B, she calls to her female friend to join her as she walks to prison. Taylor also touches on the fact that flight or fight response may be a more beneficial or successful response to stress for males over females. She states on page 42, "Male hormones, especially testosterone, appear to fuel that fight response." We see throughout all of Scene B how aggressive Leontes is and how Leontes is in a fight response due to his stress of believing Hermione cheated on him. In Scene A of the 1999 version of The Winter's Tale, King Leontes tells his servant Camillo that his wife is cheating on him and confesses that he wants Camillo to poison Polixenes. At first, Camillo doesn't believe him or agree with him, but after bickering back and forth for some time, Leontes adjusts his tone and Camillo believes him and agrees to kill Polixenes for his king. Leontes' objective is to convince Camillo to kill Polixenes for him.
Doing? I am thou his cup-bearer, whom I from meaner form have benched and reared to worship, mightst bespice a cup to give mine enemy a lasting wink, which draught to me were cordial.
King Leontes is faced with the obstacle of Camillo not believing him. Camillo tries to persuade Leontes to look at the situation from a different angle.
Say it and justify it.
I would not be a stander by to hear my sovereign mistress clouded so.
Blocking used in Scene A of the 1999 version of The Winter's Tale is when Leontes stands directly in front of Camillo during their conversation. This displays Leontes' authority over his servant Camillo and also how this matter is a serious issue to Leontes.
Understanding pate but thine, lower messers perchance out of this business purblind.
Leontes has a serious facial expression and he uses hand gestures to emphasize his point when he is speaking to Camillo. This is psychophysical action performed by Leontes in this scene.
Thou art a coward, or else thou must be counted a servant grafted in my serious trust and therein negligent, or else a fool that seest the game played home, the rich stake drawn, and takes it all for...
Psychophysical action number 2 displayed by Leontes is when he is laughing at Camillo. Leontes finds it hysterical that Camillo thinks he is ridiculous for believing that his own wife is committing adultery.
Thou
present vengeance taken. Through my heart. You never...
Another psychophysical action Leontes uses is he looks at Camillo as if he has two heads. This also emphasizes how he believes Camillo is crazy for defending his wife.
Draft to me were cordial, my lord.
Psychophysical action number 4 is displayed when Leontes waves his hand at Camillo and wipes his sweaty forehead with his handkerchief. This highlights Leontes' feelings of stress.
I question and go rot. Just think. I am so...
After Camillo continues to say no, Leontes adjusts his tone of voice and explains to Camillo that he would not be this distressed and command him to kill someone if it wasn't to be true. At this, Camillo backs down from arguing with his king and he agrees to kill Polixenes.
Lord, I could do this, but I cannot believe this crack to be in my dread mistress. I have loved thee.
Hey! I question and go rot. Just think. I am so muddy, so unsettled, to appoint myself in this vexation.
I do, and will fetch off Bohemia for it.
In Chapter 2 of The Tending Instinct, Taylor elaborates on our responses to stress. On page 39, Taylor explains that the most common stress arousals we experience are our heart races, our blood pressure increases, we sweat, and our hands may tremble a little. Leontes' psychophysical action number 4 is a prime example of what Taylor is stating. Leontes wipes his sweaty forehead, showing he is in an aroused state due to his stress of his wife's affair. In Scene B of The Winter's Tale, released in 1999, Leontes storms in on his wife and sons, sharing a story together. Leontes accuses Hermione of cheating on him, and he is physically aggressive when he approaches her and begins his accusation. At the end of the scene, Hermione ends up in prison, and that is the last time her and her son see each other. Leontes' objective is to expose his wife of committing adultery. He wants to put Hermione in prison.
Did not nurse him, though he does bear some signs of me, yet you have too much blood in him.
What is this? Sport?
Bear the boy hence, he shall not come about her. Away with him, and let her start herself with she's big with, for 'tis Polixenes has made.
Hermione tries to defend her name and attempts to hold her husband. This brings forth Leontes' obstacle.
But I'd say he had not. And I'll be sworn you would believe my saying.
Blocking done by Leontes in Scene B is he stalks around the stage. He is confident and full of assertion.
How are you lean to the nail?
You, my lords, look on her. Mark her well. Be but about to say she is a goodly lady, and the justice of your heart.
Psychophysical action number 1 is Leontes frantically shakes his head at his queen, Hermione, when she is trying to calm him down.
Which on my faith deserves.
Another psychophysical action Leontes performs is when Hermione tries to coax him, he continues to back away from her and will not let his wife touch him.
But for this, her without door form, which on my faith deserves. Ere you can say she's honest, be it known from him that has most cause to grieve it should be.
Psychophysical action number 3 is displayed when Leontes crosses his arms in front of Hermione. This emphasizes his standoff mood Leontes feels towards his wife.
You, my lord, took that mistake.
You have mistook my lady.
Scene B's outcome is Leontes' request is granted. Even as Hermione is on her hands and knees pleading for her husband to change his mind, he doesn't budge and his wife goes to prison.
Now, I trust I shall. You have leave.
Go, do our bidding, Hans. Saige.
In Chapter 8, on page 237 of her book, The Tending Instinct, author Shelley Taylor describes that the most aggressive men are those with, as she states, social skills, with the ability to work with others, to form coalitions and relationships, to lure, appease, and cajole, and to get rid of those who cannot play by the rules, are the ones who make it to the top. This relates to Leontes, as he is king of Sicily and he is very well known and favored by many. Leontes reveals his aggressiveness when he grabs his wife and throws her to the ground. Leontes is not afraid to get rid of anyone he dislikes, even if it is his well-known childhood friend Polixenes. He orders him to be poisoned without a second thought. Comparing the two films. The camera quality and audio is much clearer in the 2018 version of The Winter's Tale compared to Greg Doran's 1999 version. Doran also shot his scenes more portrait-like and zoomed in closer to the actors than producer New Swan Shakespeare Festival did in their 2018 version. In the 1999 version, Hermione's character is portrayed as much more vulnerable and desperate than the 2018 version of Hermione. In Doran's version, Hermione is desperately on her knees begging her husband to change his mind. She also weeps and is bent over as she is ushered by 3 women on her way to prison. We do not see as nearly as a pleading Hermione in the 2018 version. She doesn't place herself before her husband on her knees and she doesn't weep. She leaves with her last words being steady and bold and is followed by 1 female on her way to prison. In both versions of The Winter's Tale, we see Leontes is aggressive, but we see physical aggression much more in Doran's 1999 version compared to the 2018 version. Leontes in the newer released film never once grabbed or pushed Hermione in an aggressive manner. 1999 version of Leontes physically pushes his pregnant wife to the ground out of anger and distress, showing more physical aggression compared to the 2018 version of The Winter's Tale, produced by the New Swan Shakespeare Festival. The following page is my works cited. Thank you.